Mr. Arto Joensu, Head of Digital Marketing, Middle East and Africa of Nokia. Ziad Mattar, Senior Director and Head of Middle East, Qualcomm. Lovely stuff. And finally, but by no means least, is Mr. Sagar Shetty, Founding Partner and Director of Clique Media. Give it up. There, we can settle down now. So the idea of the panel is to look at the future of mobile, the opportunities of mobile. I mean, Rob gave us a very clear picture of a world in which mobile platforms are at an unusual stage of development, where there's everything to fight for, a world where there's phenomenal growth. Aha! They told me you weren't coming.
Well, it's a surprise.
Wow. A surprise guest, Mr. Abed Aga, Managing Director of Mobile Roadie Middle East. Okay, so Abed, I'm going to start with you. Where is the clear opportunity? It doesn't seem like a very clear market right now.
With Symbian really dominating with 80%, and with the beautiful news of dropping the OS, I think it's just a bomb dropped on the region, honestly. If there are really a lot of brands looking to mobile apps, and really looking on Symbian, now they have a lot of questions to answer, so it's quite challenging. However, there are different other mobile platforms that are also being really attractive recently. Personally, we've been seeing a lot of brands really looking into moving into Apple and Android. A lot of them really want to do Symbian, but with the challenge that I just addressed earlier, it just becomes more challenging. Is there the interest? Yes, the interest is there. Everybody wants to jump on board, mainly because of the global hype, mainly because of the success stories that are happening globally, and I think everybody wants to witness similar success stories in the region as well. So, yeah.
Gustavo, I get panned for not asking these questions, but you and Arto are kind of making jiggy. Is this a move of desperation because you are seeing Android coming into the market, or is there a plan from Microsoft that you've got a certainty for the future that we can believe in?
No, I think we launched our product 5 months ago and has been tremendous success with very high customer satisfaction and huge uptake on application development. We have reached, I think 2 weeks ago, 10,000 apps. And we have some OEMs on board. So OEMs like Samsung, LG, HTC, and Dell. And I think the partnership with Nokia just enabled us to get to the scale we need to really turn this into a three-horse race. And moving forward, we are very excited to have Nokia on board, and I think a lot of good news will come. But I think it's important customers will have choice. And the data we have so far is that mobile operators are very positive with the news, have received very well. Developers are very excited, and I think consumers will benefit from more choice.
Arto, it's a bit cheeky of me to ask you this, because I'm going to ask you about your old girlfriend and your new girlfriend's on the stage here. Symbian, it undoubtedly dominates the Middle East market. I was surprised to have an application developer who I was talking to last week saying the first thing he's doing is going Symbian, because that's where the early adopter market is, where the mass market is in the short term, and then he can move on. What would you say to a developer today, Symbian or Windows 7?
Well, I think you have to love both of your girlfriends, and while you're in the transition process, you have to be kind and diplomatic about how you go forward. But to be honest, when we look at the current landscape, we are transitioning over, and there's great plans. Someone, I think it was one of the bloggers from the Middle East, referred to the partnership that we've announced. It's actually not an ecosystem that we're building. He referred to it as a solar system, which I thought was quite amusing. But the opportunity is big. But even in the current landscape that we have around Ovi Store, we're averaging 4 million downloads a day with the current content.
Globally?
Globally, and actually in MEA itself, we're it's around 3 million a week. So
I've got to ask you about Ovi. I mean, you're allowing downloads, you're selling downloads to the Middle East. Why don't any of your competitors do that? Why is it that you're the only vendor today that will sell me an app for a smartphone in the Middle East?
Well, I think the interesting, you bring up a very, very interesting point. Nokia has always been about having the local presence. I think out of all the device manufacturers, Nokia is the only one who is here, yet we're the one that is least top of mind, though we have very large market share. I think one of the things that Nokia has been doing all along is we were one of the first ones to be in the region, develop local content which is relevant to the region, the Ramadan initiatives that have been happening. One local example, the Shanka Boot application. So I think to build a successful ecosystem has to be built for the people also in that market. And I think that is one thing that Nokia has been doing year on year, and I think that's one of the key elements where, yes, I hope. I'm a Finn by nature, by birth. We're very happy about the success Rovio has had with Angry Birds, but I think we all would like to see another Angry Birds coming from the region, and that's something that we're looking forward to.
I'm glad you mentioned that particularly very frustrating game. Ziad, I mean, what's the future? What is the future hold for mobile applications? Is it really about Angry Birds? Is that the best thing we can find to do with these mobiles? Yet we're talking about these billion-dollar global markets. Is it really a market for playing games where we catapult Angry Birds at pigs?
Well, I think it's definitely a successful game. That's why everybody is playing it, or almost everybody. But really, we see the phone becoming like a sixth sense, developing a sixth sense for the human consumer. It's a device that senses what's around you and can actually communicate with it and add to it. So instead of maybe playing Angry Bird on a static screen, Angry Bird will be surrounding us.
But it's still about birds, isn't it?
It could be around birds. We see really the future of the phone becoming the remote control of your life. And through its lens, we're going to augment reality. That's why we want to talk about the concept of augmented reality today. And reality that's around us holds a lot of digital information that's added via tweets or via tags or via other information that's embedded in the world around us. But with our eyes, we only see the physical world. Now, augmented reality can be used as an application for gaming, in which case the birds might be flying to us. And that's probably a very lucrative market. Another very lucrative market is going to be advertising, because this will allow real 100% interaction between the end user and the brand that is being advertised. By pointing your phone onto a page of a magazine, the magazine can come to life and you can suddenly sample the various products or the summer collection of a certain fashion brand or the latest car from an auto manufacturer.
I have to say I'm very delighted you mentioned advertising, so we moved down the paddle, because Sego Shetty, I mean, you come at this whole thing from an advertising viewpoint. Do your clients get this? Do they honestly understand what they want in an app, or is it just a world in which today's campaign for 2011 has to be Facebook page, Twitter, and one of those mobile appy things?
Well, there are a couple of things when you start looking at speaking to clients about mobile. The first step that they do come to you back with is, yes, how can I get an iPhone app? It's not about even an app, how can I get an iPhone app, because that's what the first question a brand...
They're asking for iPhone apps specifically.
Yeah, the first question is that. And our first throwback to them is, well, what are you trying to achieve from that? And why are you alienating the rest of your audience? What are you trying to achieve? Once you know that, then you go and segment your audience accordingly, and then you decide on what app you want to make.
Are they saying iPhone app because their kids have got iPhones and they know they're cool, or what?
Well, purely because that's what everyone is talking about, the iOS platform. Everyone's talking about the iOS platform, so I want to know what I can do. We don't have stats on the number of iPhones in the region. We don't have stats on the number of iPads in the region, but they still want to work on that as a cool brand.
But let's be fair, I mean, that's counterintuitive. Nokia owns the market with Symbian. It's about to make a steady play with Windows 7. Android's all over the place like a rash. The iPhone's no longer really a contender, is it?
Well, it's actually a total opposite to what things are actually. If you look at the mobile internet penetration and the number of impressions, I think Rob would have a lot more stats on that. You still will see majority of the people browsing the internet or using apps on the phone are still on the iPhone in terms of sheer number of impressions. But in sheer numbers, yes, Nokia dominates the entire market, but they don't dominate the smartphone and the app market. And in the OV store, you still are looking at a little bit lower than the smartphones, which are your application to download on the OV store. So there are different types of applications. It depends on what you wanted to do.
Okay, so I've only got $40,000 or so. I've come to you, BB, iPhone, all the rest of them. I've got room to develop one app, and I might have more money going forwards if the one app works. Which app would you recommend I move to? Which platform would you recommend I use?
Depends on what the app would do. If it is a CRM tool that you already know, that majority of your audience is already on the Symbian platform, you develop a Symbian platform. If it is purely just as a branding tool, you want to have something to put up at an awards function, you probably do it on the iOS. But again, it's a very different question to why you want to do an app first.
So why do they want to do an app?
Well, it's about branded apps. It's about whether it's CRM, whether it is about reaching to a new audience, whether it's about introducing a new product. So what are you trying to achieve there?
So are you finding clients saying, I want an app, and having a clear idea of what they want to do, or are they just blindly asking for an app?
Well, majority is trying to ask why I want to do an app.
I want to do an app.
Yeah.
And do you
Why?
say why, and they say, well,
There's
we
quite
need
a
to
few
do an app?
questions coming up from that after that.
And what are sort of typical first questions? Where are clients struggling to understand this?
The first question is, well, why do you want to do an app? Well, because my boss told me to do one. First up, I need to be able to go back to my boss saying that we did something cool this year. We did an iPhone app. That's the first step. And that's, unfortunately, that's global. It's not just specific to the region.
Cool, okay. What I'm going to do is open up the floor, if I may. While I do that, Rob, do you want to fancy joining us again? Where's Rob gone? Rob? Yeah, do you fancy joining us again? Before I ask the question on the floor, a quick question for any of you that cares to respond. What will I know this time next year that I don't know now? What will have happened in the market that otherwise won't have happened? How about you? What's going to surprise me? What's next year's big thing? What's next year's Angry Birds?
If I may start, I would say a lot of applications related to augmented reality. We're going to start seeing a lot of those. A lot of probably NFC. There's a lot of talks around that. So payments being really the central use of mobile. So looking at these two elements, I think this is crucial for the survival of application stores. If they're not really able to offer advanced applications, really enhancing the user experience on the go, they're going to eventually get out. So this is very crucial to happen. NFC, augmented reality, QR codes.
You guys are very tied into the operators, and you've worked out payment now. You can get money back for your apps. Everybody else can't in the Middle East. Are you giggling evilly or worrying about what's behind you?
I think for next year, we're going to have some very good news. So the next release of Windows Phone 7 will be available. Nokia will be on board. And one of the aspects of the partnership that we are trying to make work is actually the capabilities that Nokia has locally. So I think next year we'll be able to serve in a way that we never were able to serve the local users, local operators, local developers with all the capabilities on payments and applications. So hopefully two platforms will be able to do that. The current Nokia and the future.
Do you guys feel in a privileged position in the Middle East market, which is probably unique in the world, where your competitors can't serve the market with paid apps?
I think the reality today is that
Nokia waited for you. That was very elegant.
Everybody can do this. It's not officially supported by most of the platforms. So I think the relationship that Nokia has with the operators will help us very much on that.
Is that part of what you're going to get out of this deal, access to their telco relationships?
That's one of the pillars of the partnership.
Okay, cool. So open up to the room. Any questions for the panel? Question number one.
My question is there any number or figures for the amount of money spent on advertisement for applications and the money spent on web versions of mobile web versions of websites? You know, the advertisement on both. Do we know any figures in the Middle East? And what's the future? Is it only applications? Is everyone only advertising on applications or the web versions of mobile versions of the websites?
Applications themselves or the websites that serve them, where's the advertising money going?
For us, it depends on what the advertiser is trying to achieve. So there's some limitations on what they're trying to do. So if they're selling something which requires a certain handset, a certain operating system to get an application or a service out to, then obviously they're going to be biased towards that one. The other thing we see as well, which is very interesting, is in the absence of really good geodemographic or user-type targeting, advertisers increasingly use a platform as a proxy for that. So they pick an an iOS platform because they assume a certain amount of income, a certain type of user, a certain affinity to do particular things on their device. So in the absence of great targeting, they're doing that. But really it comes down to what is their main objective in running their particular campaign. And companies like ours, companies like Segas really have to try and understand what it is they're trying to do and do it for them.
Let's say for banners and branding and just showing out the logo or something of the company, do they differentiate between apps or mobile web versions?
So I mean, certainly on our platform, if you want to run something very rich and engaging, a smartphone platform is going to be better. You can do more with it. You can do more creative formats. You can be more interactive. there's just more you can do. It's a simple function of the handset. So that always has an affinity towards particular brand campaigns.
Is that something you're opening up Ovi to, by the way? Are you allowing people to do campaigns on Ovi as well as running apps through it?
Yeah, so I think there's quite extensive tools. So just one thing on the billing piece, I think the operator billing is a very integral piece where it's not just credit card payments, but you actually get the integration. So we have 90 different operators on board, which makes the transactions
global.
Globally, and we're rolling that out very extensively in the Middle East as well, which I think the really fascinating part of that is connecting the next billion. And I think that's the fascinating piece in terms of how quickly the mobile devices have evolved throughout the years. And I think a lot of times we tend to think, well, what's the next big thing? And I think the next big thing is the democratization of smartphones. And that's going to be a really interesting and fascinating thing to see in the coming years.
Well, I've seen grown, sensible men reduced to gibbering wrecks trying to negotiate revenue shares with operators. How can you manage it?
Well, I think that comes down to the long relationships that we've had, and obviously it's something that has evolved throughout the years in terms of the perceptions and the attitudes that a lot of the players in the industry have had throughout the years. The early days of the internet and when the bubble burst, I think many of the operators had a different view of what they want to become in the years to come, and that kind of has changed throughout the years with the explosion of social networking and how the operators are positioning themselves in the market. So I do think that's having the local presence and also having those strong relationships with operators in the end brings a very strong competitive advantage, because that's where the transactions are made in mobile purchases to a very large degree.
Sega?
Can I just add a point to the question that the gentleman made? What people are looking for in the Middle East and when they are advertising, do they select apps over mobile sites? Most of the time, they will select mobile sites because in-app advertising is very local. In-app advertising is very, very limited. There's hardly any in-app advertising available here. Of the campaigns that we do, most of the times, it is mobile sites that they're after. There are very few people who actually provide good applications here in the Middle East locally, and will give you advertising in that as well. So just to answer your question, yes, it's more mobile site advertising.
Any other questions from the floor? Gentlemen.
So current studies are saying that more and more people, they buy things, but they don't actually use them, apps. And are we expecting that people become more conscious? So if I don't want an app, currently the thinking is it's just $1 or it's less than $1, I'll buy it, I'll throw it, etc. And it feels like a gold rush. So how do we think, are you telling people build and, anything and people are going to buy it? Or are we going to actually be building products?
When Kuwaitis earn an average of 2.4 mobiles a month, the disposability is not such an issue. But gentlemen, whoever wants to take the question first, are you building disposable apps for people just to download and throw away, or are you building enduring value in applications?
I think there's just one point we want to highlight, that, and we realize this feedback both from consumers and developers, is that on our marketplace, the Windows Phone 7 marketplace, we enable what we call the try function. So it's an initial thought on how to address this pain point, which is, can I try a paid app? What do I get out of this paid app? And then our research shows that people that tried app, they have 70% more chances of acquiring this app in the future. So I think a lot of ideas will come to address this particular pain. The try option is just the start of that.
I think it's a combination of many things. You have very interesting applications coming in which are totally about just having fun and bursting bubbles, for example. But if I answer that from a brand perspective, kind of my company aside, I think the one thing that a lot of marketing managers need to understand is that what you're in essence what you're creating through an application is that we're not fighting for consumers' attention anymore. We're actually fighting for their partial attention because we're being bombarded by so many messages at all times. And I think that what you're doing is you're creating time when you're reaching your target audience in the right time, And I think the application, it's an interesting evolution of how you think of the website of things, when you have JavaScript and the CSS and plugins and extensions to your browser. In a sense, applications become an extension of your mobile experience. And I think that's the interesting one, where I still see that a lot of brands aren't really utilizing mobile applications as a vehicle of, how much would it cost in terms of GRPs to have someone engage 5 minutes fully with you and your brand? And I think that's a very big opportunity. So it's a combination of many elements.
Are applications the only possible future revenue earner for mobile? Because at the moment, all we're talking about is applications, as if that is the great future. Surely there's other ways of making money out of mobiles, yeah?
It's always been about apps. If you look at it, voice was the first app, and it created a lot of revenue initially, and now it's becoming a minor part of the revenue. Then came SMS, etc. So apps will always be there, and will always be looking for the killer apps. They will become more and more commoditized depending on they are, while something newer comes. Today, voice is a commodity. It's there on every phone. SMS is there, but we're looking for other apps. We're talking about a specific app to do augmented reality maybe and advertising. In the future, that will become also a basic function of the phone, like NFC, for instance, from PayPal. So any camera in the phone will just have basically built into it the capability to be a browser of the world around us. And by that time, the developers, the creatives, everybody else will have come up with the new app.
Oh, yeah, great. If I take your argument logically, the greatest killer app of all time in mobile was invented by the guy next to you by mistake.
Absolutely.
SMS. I mean, the greatest thing the mobile industry achieved in terms of revenue earning, taking the technology and really extending it, was something that engineers did and was taken up by mistake. There hasn't been a killer app, surely, since, other than Angry Birds.
But if you look at it, most revenue generated by that mistake today is in advertising. So you can think about it that above all that layer of apps, there's one maybe general
You're taking us into spam territory there.
Yeah.
That's not advertising, that's spam.
That's why augmented reality should solve that, because that's something you would trigger.
Well, I think something else.
Follow up. I'll go to somebody else first.
Alex, hang on. Can I make a point, please? I think mobile sites is something that we should is something that a lot of brands aren't looking at right now either. It's everyone's trying to go for the app, but your basic mobile presence is something that should be there, which is not there at all. Which is why when we walk into most offices and they ask for an app, we say, why don't you start off by having a mobile site which is going to be experiential based on the type of phone that I'm using, and that could then decide whether do I need an app or not in the future, from a brand perspective. And even from content perspective, how many sites actually have proper mobile sites as well? In the region, pretty much none. I think probably I can count about 20 odd good content sites in the region on mobile.
No, it's a timely point, well made, because also a mobile site costs next to nothing to do.
Yeah.
In fact, you can do them for nothing, so you don't have to invest in the app to experiment in the mobile space.
Exactly.
Very good point.
Yeah, question about to Nokia and Microsoft. In a sense, I mean, you're assuming that your relationship with the MNOs are, and I don't see anybody from mobile network operator sitting with you. It's like, and this is really irking a lot of the MNOs nowadays, because you're making use of them as a bit pipe. And the fact that you're using their profile, their bases, their last mile, which costs them billions of dollars, and talking about revenue sharing, all of those. This is, what's your point on this? And I do have another question for mobile advertisement. We haven't seen any mobile advertisement in the region.
That's not true.
Why not? I mean, it's been really, the application were there, just very minor, very simple. We haven't gone that far like they've done in Europe.
Sorry, you said you haven't seen any advertising?
I haven't seen any major application going.
Okay.
Gents?
Which one first?
Let's do the advertising one first. The second one's much more fun.
Well, I don't understand why you're saying that you don't see mobile advertising at all. We've seen in this past 3 months as our own company, we've done over 30 campaigns on mobile in the region. We've done a major campaign even for Nokia sitting right here. So mobile advertising is definitely here. The amount of campaigns we did the whole of last year, we've done in the past 2.5 months. So we've seen that grow steadily over the past 2 years. And I just believe it's agreed it's probably its epicenter is Dubai, but it probably will spread out here as well pretty soon. But in terms of mobile advertising for the region, there's definitely a lot of demand and there's definitely a lot of supply as well.
Rob, you got the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I mean, it still feels a little bit early. We effectively built a business in this region almost by accident, by our own admission. because we work with a lot of global sites and applications who have got very strong growth here. But our network here is about 1 billion, 1.5 billion impressions a month, and we have advertisers running almost continuously, multiple different campaigns, everything from guys promoting their applications to large brands looking for reach. And as we and others spend more time educating the region, which is absolutely key, we find more and more advertisers who are looking to get access to that reach. So, as I said earlier on, there's massive potential here. There's some things that need to be cracked first, but absolutely there's advertising campaigns running today.
What needs cracked first?
Sorry?
What needs to be cracked first?
So I think on the usage side, the supply side, it is growing like crazy for all the reasons that everybody knows. I think right now it's a combination of helping advertisers understand the complexity around it, because it can be complex, but also selling them on the benefits. I mean, some of the questions today really highlight the fact that there's a bias towards apps and there's a certain thinking about way things should be done. The reality is, if you're going to spend money on advertising on mobile, you have to think what you're trying to achieve out of that in the first place, and then back into the specific execution. And you need expertise to do that.
Anybody in the room a mobile network operator? One. Any others? Anybody in the room sitting next to a mobile network operator? Oh, lots back there. Okay, hang on, let's go here. 1 second. Tell me, what's your view? Do you think Microsoft and Nokia are setting out to screw you? Do you think Microsoft and Nokia are setting out to use your network, use your facilities, and generally use you to get their sales made?
Certainly, but I think the responsibility is on the mobile operators. They have to actively be involved more into content. Now, if we get to be the tube of all this, then it's our responsibility and it's our fault. Mobile operators should have dedicated strategies to be more into application and content, just like Etisalat is doing. In Lebanon, we don't have this opportunity. I'm a mobile operator in Lebanon. So we're not involved, yes, we are, and we think that this is what will happen to us, yes.
You feel you're not involved in the developmental process or not involved in the marketing process?
And we're not involved in both, but the marketing process is a little bit more feasible than in Lebanon than the application process and the development process.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other operators in the room? You're an operator? Yes? No, okay. So, I mean, to be fair, is this about you guys trying to use the operators? Is this about you guys actually just genuinely doing something to move the market forwards, and you have to take the operators with you one way or the other?
Well, I mean, absolutely. So I think positioning it as we're trying to screw the operators, I think that's absolutely not the case. I think there's, I mean, obviously it needs to be a win-win relationship. And I think that if you think of a mobile phone manufacturer anywhere, I think the key gateway to making a lot of the startups that we heard earlier successful is that people want to avoid bill shock and they want to have fixed data bundles. I think there was an interesting petition going on here where it was democratize the internet here in Lebanon to actually get higher speed connections. And I think to label it as a pipe, yes, we need pipes so people can access the internet, and that pipe is gone to mobile. But I think that if the consumers start having fixed data bundles and they're not afraid to use the internet on their mobile, that opens a whole world of opportunities for developers, for brands, for everything. So it grows the overall ecosystem. And I think with concrete elements like operator billing, absolutely it's adding revenue for the operators. If people are downloading applications and they're using operator billing for doing it, people are accessing the internet, they're using the data. They're using elements like OV Maps to navigate and all that. So it's actually bringing more people to a whole myriad of activities on the operator's network. So to answer your question, no, we're not screwing them.
Okay, anybody but Nokia and Microsoft, do you feel that the operators are being lagged behind? That circuit switch thinking of old-fashioned operators means they're really not keeping up with this kind of stuff and they're feeling challenged by it because they don't understand it?
I think...
No, I said anyone but Nokia and Microsoft. No, not you.
Yeah.
No more. Finish. We're finished with you. No more. We can't let you. They've been complaining on Twitter.
I think the issue is that, as you made this quick statistic now in the room, there's a handful of operators in this room. And we are sitting here, and probably taking it for granted that they're going to keep building these beautiful networks, investing billions of dollars in spectrum and licenses and networks, and these will be available for us to use. On the other hand, from the central location where I am, I've been to other events where it's only the operators and their infrastructure vendors and there's consultants sitting in a closed room and having similar meetings and saying, well, these guys want to screw us, like Nokia said. And basically saying, you know, and the best thing they have come up with so far is that I heard, let's put a tax on them. Let's ask the government to actually tax them. So the real problem is that these two meetings are happening in two different locations, at least in this region. And the two groups are not talking, and this is the proof, you know.
Any other questions that are not about Nokia Microsoft?
Well, my question is, are there any available statistics in the market regarding the app sales in the MENA region, or whether people prefer to buy or still download the free apps?
Great question, and sadly it's one that Nokia is probably best placed to ask. But the rest of the panel, just for the moment, because we have been giving the guys a lot of time today, free apps versus paid-for apps, what's most popular in the region? I mean, it's obviously free apps because there's so little paid for, but what would drive more paid-for adoption?
To begin with the app world, which are not here, present here in the region, which is the BlackBerry app world is still not available, so you can't act. If I want to make an app on BlackBerry, I got to do it and host it somewhere, and then get someone to download it from there. Which means, for me to put it up for free doesn't make sense because I'm paying hosting charges, etc., etc. I'd rather get that to be a paid app. So, if the app worlds need to come here in the region, there's no proper the Arabic iPhone app world as well here in the region. So, to begin with, I think first all of those need to start coming here to get the ecosystem going. So right now, everyone pretty much pays for their apps on iPhone, or they get the ones with advertising embedded till they can actually upgrade.
Try as I might, I can't do it. I have to bring Nokia in. You're the only people that actually sell apps on your platform and have free-to-download apps. What are the proportions like?
Well, obviously, very much on the free. But then the question is, there's no such thing as free. Someone pays for it. So is it either a brand is paying for the development costs, or is it funded by advertising, or is it just that you pay for the full thing? So there's a few applications. I mean, Angry Birds, obviously, that's one where you have the free and the paid version. But then there's also other applications like Gravity, which is, you know, it's being downloaded and it's fully paid for, and it's actually quite a big transaction, but it's such a good application that people are really enjoying the usage. But what we're seeing overall is it's kind of a combination. What the gentleman before was also showing in terms of the 4 different boxes, some funded by advertising, some by brands, and then some of the other elements around that. So,
and Abin and Rob, what's your view of where the revenue could come from? What's the best revenue model moving forward for somebody wanting to develop an application?
So the data we've got for the region is that 95% is free across all platforms, with some slight bias from one platform to the other. And it hasn't changed, certainly, as long as we've been tracking the data. The barrier, obviously, as has been discussed, is the complexity around payments and billing. And even for those who have been able to put in place carrier billing, you know, that's, again, doesn't work as well in this region as it does in others. So there's huge challenges there. In terms of other ways of making money, I mean, advertising is great. In-app transactions, obviously very important in other regions around the world and relatively limited here, but has the same bottleneck around payment platforms. So for me, it all comes down to the payment platforms.
And again, a Microsoft question. I mean, applications apart, what about content? You've got the tablets that are opening up new ways of consuming content. What's the revenue in content for you?
The marketplace we have today, available across Middle East and Africa, is basically for free apps. So the countries that are able to download today, those are basically free apps. So I think it's a little bit recent to judge what is the proportion between paid and free apps, considering we don't have the mechanisms and the ability for people to do those transactions. Even the usage of credit cards or mobile operator billing agreements are just starting. I think in 1 or 2 years we'll have a much better figure to do that. But as Artur mentioned, what we are seeing more and more is brands making their products available through free apps in change of brand exposure or advertisement. So this is basically the trend we are seeing, and actually commercial companies and public sector companies such as government entities are very aggressive in driving this kind of application creation.
Any other questions? Going. Oh.
So my question is, as privacy concerns come up, and 2 weeks ago there was this news story that broke up where a botnet was found in one of the apps. Even in iPhone's walled garden, there are still issues that are appearing in that. Do you actually still believe that there will be a market when people are becoming more and more conscious that these applications, I mean, Angry Bird shouldn't be accessing my phone contacts. It's a game, for example. I don't know about Angry Bird, but still. So what's your takes on that?
Let's start from the right, because it's a big question. Privacy concerns, what apps do and what they don't do. Downloading app, you might as well be downloading malware. What do you think are the consumer concerns there? Yeah, sorry. So you go.
You said I'm looking at that. Well, yes, there has been a few concerns of late, especially with Android pulling off a lot of applications in the past couple of weeks because of privacy concerns. But I haven't heard the one about the Apple privacy concerns yet. But yes, we know that it's something, but it's something you live with eventually.
I haven't heard about that one either, but surely Apple's walled garden going down must be the greatest concern of all, because that was the one we accepted as the great holy grail, wasn't it? That Apple's inviolable. Ziad, what do you think is the biggest concern?
I mean, I don't think these problems will disappear. They will only become there, and there will be solutions for them. Same as PCs. Phones today are available in 4 billion pockets around the world. My colleague was just telling me there are more phones than toothbrushes in the world. So then these phones are becoming smartphones. More than 50%, around 56% of all phones sold this year are going to be smartphones. They're going to bring their share of problems with them. So we're going to see the apps that are going to also solve these problems: antivirus, security, privacy apps, etc.
Nokia, you sold a squillion apps, free and paid for. What are the security concerns? How do you address them?
Well, yeah, obviously it's kind of something we're used to on the fixed website, that we have certain virus scanning and all that. Obviously there's a signing process that happens when applications are being submitted, but obviously privacy as a whole, I think that's something that, I mean, Nokia takes very seriously, and you know, every time an application is submitted, it goes through a certain testing. But yeah, absolutely. I think these are the kinds of new challenges when the industry is changing all the time that need to be addressed as they come.
Microsoft, I have been one of your customers for over 25 years now. Am I going to have to download Symantec for Windows Phone 7?
Well, for PCs you don't have, because you have an antivirus coming from Microsoft for free now. But again, on phones, the way we see this is that you need to play a balance between a completely open environment where this kind of effect happened, I think 2 weeks ago in one of the ecosystems, through a completely walled garden model where you have very little flexibility. The way we are playing this is a marketplace with high quality of accepting applications, treating applications, but also a phone that has the security embedded for those applications not to do things. So as the gentleman mentioned, it's like an application can access my contacts. The way Windows Phone 7 is built is that if an application wants to access your location, your contacts, there's a question that pops up and you answer yes or no. So I think it's a balance, and you need to have security at marketplace, app store level, but also on the phone.
Abid, how do you deal with privacy concerns on mobile applications?
With ourselves, I mean, most of the apps, I mean, across our platform, we have integrated heavily with social networks. So privacy issues will be complying with the privacy policies of the social networks themselves. The moment the user logs in through the app using Facebook or Twitter, he's automatically getting data from his Facebook account delivered to the publisher. The way we handle it is whatever Facebook is offering to the user. In terms of mobility, we keep the data totally to the publisher. So we don't have any specific concerns so far. We haven't seen any security issues rising because it's a closed platform anyways. It's not an open platform that we offer.
Rob, what's your view? I mean, will we give away our entire life secrets and all our personal ID and our biometrics just to get hold of that next version of Angry Birds?
So here's a different perspective on privacy. The amount of information an app developer or publisher on a mobile device can capture from a user is very high. And that information is very valuable to us and to advertisers, and we get a huge amount of information. The challenge on privacy and security is very little regulation available today, and the potential for advertisers to really exploit those loopholes in the short to medium term. So the challenge for us and for the customers we work with is to make sure we protect privacy as much as we can within a relatively unregulated environment.
And do you find advertisers are willing to take it too far?
In general, no, but you find specific cases of advertisers who really want to get very, very detailed information.
That amoral corporation that wants the users?
Absolutely.
Disgusting. Right, that's us. We've run out of time. I'd like you to give up a huge round of applause for our panel. I mean, huge. Big.
Thank you.
Panel, thank you very much for putting up with me and for being here with us. We're going to sort of change around, do some coffee and stuff, and at 6 o'clock we're going to start the group buying session. Thank you.